Hello, my name is Andy Martin. I'm Senior Product Design Engineer for the Stove Fan company. I'd like to introduce there's some stove fans basically that we've developed, and then some other brands and explain about the other brands of stove fans here. This is basically a one that's very popular in the marketplace. This one here basically has got a blade which is pushing the air out through the whole thing itself. The downside of this kind of stove fan is because the heat gets to the outside of the stove fan here, and what actually happens when the heat gets to that, it slows the whole thing down. So the idea basically of a TEG, which is the thermal generator unit that's built inside of here. The thermal generator, the idea is to be 30 degrees difference between the top and the bottom. But if you've got heated top and you've got a heated bottom sort of thing, you're not going to get the disparity between the two temperatures. So that's with that one. This one here basically is particular of what we've tested, basically the trailing blade. This type of trailing blade that's on here basically has a tendency to actually push the air outwards instead of pushing the air forwards, propelling the air forward. And basically because it doesn't propel the air forward and it pushes it around, basically it doesn't circulate around the room as well. This stove fan basically is another stove fan which is a good seller on the web itself. But the downside with this stove fan basically is it has a long stem here. So anything that's got a long stem there basically generally doesn't perform as well as our model. We found in testing sort of thing, basically this long stem here, it's not evenly distributing the heat. It actually comes to one part of the TG, which is in the middle. It doesn't come across to this side and across to that side. It needs to be even across the TG itself to make it perform properly. This kind of blade is okay, it's acceptable, but as I say, the design of the stove fan is not as good. So move on to our stove fan. Our stove fan basically has got a hatch in here. This hatch in here is very, very low to the ground, to the surface itself. This is a marble, heated marble, to try and stimulate a stove. So basically this part in here, the air actually gets into this section itself, and then the fan itself drags the air out through the heated section. So we call this a semi-heated stove fan, not fully heated, it's a semi-heated stove fan, whereas most of the other ones, the blades is well off the ground and they basically don't pull the air from the actual heated surface, whereas this one here is actually pulling it from this hole in the center of here, which basically gives it that heat, that intense heat that you get from it. So the temperature increase of this is around about probably 5 to 10 degrees compared to an ordinary stove fan. Because of this design, and because basically because the base is connected to the upper base, in which that spreads all the way across the TEG, this also produces a greater voltage, and a greater voltage makes the motor work better. And because the motor works better sort of thing, you'll get a higher performance out of this. So we would expect this to be around about 2 to 2.3 meters per second. It depends on basically the temperature that you've got of the stove itself. Obviously, if it's a lesser temperature of the stove, this being around 300 degrees, the average is about 300 degrees, so that's basically where we're going to start from. You'll normally find basically that this stove fan will actually start a lot faster, and it'll also spin a lot faster, and it'll last a lot longer within the room, and it'll actually work at 50 degrees C, never mind 300 degrees C. So we'll just put them on together and let you have a look to see how they perform. Play this one. You see the two basically. Ours has got a unique blade itself. So this blade basically itself is a very efficient blade, more efficient than any other stove fan that we have. This produces around 2.3 meters a second. This kind of stove fan here will produce around 1.5, 1.6 meters a second. Just because of the blade design and because of the speed of this in comparison to the speed of that. You can see there now they're both fairly quiet. Most stove fans are quiet, but now this basically when you actually feel this now, and you put your hand out the front here, you can feel heated air. And this one here, basically you can feel it's just a draft. There's no real heat coming from it. And this is because this is channeling the air, the air from the stove directly underneath. Bigger blade diameter also helps as well. This has got a 180 to 185 millimeter blade, whereas this one here is about a 175. Some smaller ones don't produce the same amount of air when you get a smaller blade itself. So it's very important to actually check the diameter of the blade, the position of the blade, how far the blade is from the stove itself. The lower to the ground, that also helps as well. It pushes some of the heat out from the stove itself. Thank you very much indeed.